Hi, we don't want to keep you waiting, so we're going to start without the chair, if that's okay. His backpack is here, so he should be here. Okay.
I did all good all day.
Thank you for getting here.
Sorry, I'm late.
No.
You see traffic, the traffic.
Can you text the one? Can you text the one and tell them about the start?
Oh, okay. That's probably a good idea. What did I do with my phone? Is it there?
Right there.
Thank you. Okay, we are starting. Right, Brooks?
Yep.
Do you want a chair?
Ready?
All right, welcome everyone to the meeting, the February meeting of Housing and Human Welfare. Here currently is myself and Alderwoman Tierney. Our chair, Alderman Gay, is on the way. First off, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved?
I will second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Second, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our December 5th meeting?
So moved?
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, up first is legislation R5523, temporary moratorium on short-term rental licenses for the purpose of implementing a temporary moratorium on the City Council's issuance of short-term rental licenses while the City Council considers Ordinance 3223. Any of the sponsors here? No.
No, but may I?
Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think there's some misunderstanding with this bill, that it's like a moratorium for licenses forever, but I think what the sponsor is trying to do is sort of put a pause for any new licenses until this legislation is passed. And I understand that existing licenses are not impacted. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding of it. I feel nothing about this, so I know it's been pitched as a cure for housing affordability issues, but it's a bit.
Well, it sort of goes hand in hand with the ordinance, so I'm not sure why we're looking at it without the ordinance.
I don't know either.
Is the ordinance on the agenda?
No,
Okay. So then why don't we just wait until the ordinance comes to us?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
All those in favor of postponing action on R5523, aye.
Aye.
Up next, ID 1724, rental rehabilitation update. Thank you.
Hi.
Please join us at the table. If you can please introduce yourselves for the record, and although we all know you, but the public may not.
Good evening. I'm Chris Jakubiak, Director of Planning and Zoning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good evening, Teresa Wellman, Chief of Community Development.
Thank you two so much for coming today.
So I'll get started. Just so you know, and I sent you copies of the draft policies and procedures for the program. Just to give you a little background on how they came about, was after we saw that there was a $500,000 budget amendment to fund this program, we volunteered to write the policies and procedures. So we had a little brainstorming session with the Affordable Housing Commission and came up with a number of ideas. And then I did some research to see if there were any other programs like this in the country and did find one. And so we took those two things together, put it all together, and then went through and wrote with the committee the policies and procedures that you have.
I apologize if I misheard you. Did you say you did not find one, or you did find one?
I did.
You did. Okay, cool.
I found several, actually, but there was one that sort of fit in with what the brainstorming session developed, so. So that's basically what we did. The Planning and Zoning Department, just so you know, doesn't have staff to implement this
Does it what?
program. So,
Sorry, doesn't.
Does not have staff to implement this program.
correct.
If I can just expand on that a little bit. There are really two elements of administering this program. One is defining eligibility, record keeping, reporting, things like that. And the other is construction management, which is an essential part of this to avoid fraud and misuse of public funds. Other programs like this, even the county's owner-occupied rehab program, have an extensive staff, capable staff that manage construction, that interface with contractors, know how to read invoices and manage that whole permit and inspections process. We don't have staff to do that just yet, and we don't have any anticipation of hiring a person just now to do that. So that's a conundrum here that we need to tackle. But we recognize the importance of this program, and if this committee supports it and the council supports it, we will work hard to develop what we need internally to do to at least implement it and get it moving.
I think it's fair to say at least this committee supports it. We do really understand staff burdens. A lot is put on you guys. What specifically separates this from some of the existing program and policy that we have in place for our owner-occupied rehabilitation? I understand that it's adding workload, but is there anything radically different between the two that would make it? I'm seeing nods, so.
Well, we contract out that construction management to Arundel Community Development Services. So they have excellent staff that have done this for many years for the owner-occupied rehab program. They do not have a rental rehab program. They've had one, but they've discontinued it. So the big difference, it's really not a staff burden, it's just that we don't have the capacity to do the construction management part. Our owner-occupied program farms that out. So you would have to, this would have to be farmed out also.
Have we had discussions with Anne Arundel Community Development to do that farming out, and they are telling us no? Have we offered to make them a nice sandwich or bake them a cake? Like, what is required to?
They've done the program twice and said it was not successful.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Alderman Tooney.
Could I, just to back up a little bit, let me just make sure I understand the financing. The money is the hotel allocation, or am I wrong
No.
about that? Where's the money coming
This
from?
was a budget amendment at the end of, when you were doing
Okay,
all your
that's where I
budget
was-
amendments.
Yeah, I should.
Alderman Gay submitted a budget amendment.
Okay.
It was originally for
Yeah.
$1 million, and then it was reduced to $500,000, and it passed.
Okay. So that $500,000 is budgeted for what exactly?
It's not budgeted yet.
I mean, it's-
It will be, I got an email from Director Dickerson, and they're suggesting that it gets put in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as a third item. Like right now, we have our the part of it that was funded through MPDUs
Yeah.
in lieu fees, that
Right.
goes to affordable housing. And then the one that you were talking about, it's
Yeah.
a separate budget for the rental assistance
The
program.
rental assistance, yeah.
And they're talking about a third project.
Okay. Okay, but it's just, for lack of a better word, though, it's just sort of a pass-through of money. You staff, our staffing is our cost then. That's not covered in that money at all. There's no, the $500,000 is budgeted as money that will be used for rehabilitation, correct?
Well-
It doesn't include any,
It
I
doesn't,
did in the policies and procedures, I created an eligible use, which is administration, and also, if you look in the affordable housing legislation, there is allowable administrative costs. So there would be, you could use money, as far as I can tell, you could use money to hire someone to do the contract management part of it.
The reason I asked is the budget requests for 2025 are coming, in, I mean, are, I think, done. I think the deadline is passed. So when you mentioned added staff,
The Planning and Zoning budget has been drafted and presented to the Internal Staff Finance Committee chaired by Mike Malinoff.
Yeah.
It does not include this program or staff to implement the program.
Okay.
And that $500,000 was a one-time commitment. There's no
Right.
recurring, there's no evidence that it's a recurring fund so we'd have to put money into it in each subsequent budget year to keep it going.
all right, thanks.
So I guess my question is, what's the way forward with this program? There is an obvious need for this revenue stream for fund rehabilitation. I don't know if we're able to apply it to some of the public housing HACA properties or not. We're not,
No,
of
it
course not.
doesn't.
That'd be too convenient and easy. But there is still issues facing especially older units of housing in the city that do need a little TLC, and this funding source can provide a good way to get those back and functional. So do we know of any ways forward with this, or is this 500,000 just going to end up going back into the general fund of the budget?
I would like to ask a question. Did the committee read these policies and procedures and agree with what's in there?
That you presented to us?
Not together. Not collectively.
We have not had a collective meeting on it. We've read them individually. I don't know of anybody who's had a problem with it, but maybe I'm misunderstanding when we say we don't have the ability to do this if that goes against the committee procedures or the procedures that you wrote.
Well, you can change what's in here because they haven't been adopted or it's draft.
Lower income.
So when you ask about it going forward, it isn't really a program yet.
Okay.
Because
Sorry, I'm back. So backing up again, the amendment reads, this amendment adds $500,000. I hope I have the right one, but it's Dwan's. Yeah, this amendment adds $500,000 of funding to finance non-allocated interfund transfers for a new loan program to assist landlords with deferred maintenance on properties with lower income tenants, using $250,000 of the reserve for one-time uses. Okay, and that's where the money's coming from, and $250,000 of ARPA. Okay, so the money, so why is the money held up then? Is it, okay,
that would be a question for the finance director.
okay. Okay. Sorry, yeah. All right.
Well, I have no further questions on this. I guess it's just trying to find out a way that we can actually begin the implementation of it. It's proving difficult. Would it be too much to ask that we ask the Department of Planning and Zoning to keep brainstorming ways that we can find a good way to use this? Or is this just sort of the roadblock and they're at the end of the road and there's no way around it? And I mean, if you don't know the answer right now, like the definitive answer right now, that's okay.
There doesn't have to be a roadblock, but there does have to be across the board city administrative support and infrastructure architecture built around it to make this a legitimate program that can be funded and administered by whoever it is that would administer it, if it's us. And right now we don't have, if I'm right about that, we don't have that in place yet.
Yeah,
We're-
you have to hire, basically.
Yeah, so
Well, this is good that the chair is here, because I think that since it's his amendment, I'm sure he had a framework for how this would work.
Policy.
What's that?
No amendments to policy.
To their policy?
Well,
This is the budget amendment for the 500,000 for the.
Okay, yeah, no amendments to policy.
The issue is that there's not an ability to administer the program internally,
Staff-wise.
staff-wise,
Of course not. So
and the
Anne Arundel ACDS doesn't want to manage it because they are overwhelmed apparently with their $10 million budget and the staff that they have and the rental assistance that they don't provide. So we will have to outsource it to a nonprofit capable of doing the job.
Okay.
I don't understand why the county's nonprofit wouldn't do it. I don't understand how they're saying they are over capacity.
They have had this program twice and it wasn't successful.
Why do you think it wasn't successful?
They had difficulty with, I guess, when managing the process with the landlords. Even in our owner-occupied rehab program, it tends to get very complicated. You have all
but-
kinds of things that happen that,
Because it's complicated, do we rob citizens of services that they need?
we can hire, like I said, we can go ahead, we could, if the city so chooses, they could,
Yeah, I think we should definitely move forward and just find a nonprofit.
Put out an
to,
RFP.
find a
Like we do.
nonprofit to run it. So just looping back on the status of the conversation that we had with the Office of Law. So the policy will run under the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, correct?
that's from the finance department.
Okay, from the finance
We didn't
department.
we haven't really had comment
Okay.
from the Office of Law.
Okay.
Final comments.
Yeah, because I seen kind of what he was suggesting. Have you found the funding for the newspaper or
I'm sorry.
to put the policy in the newspaper, the advertisement funding?
It'll come out of that $500,000, but here's the problem I have, to be honest. I am not comfortable with this until this committee takes a look at it and make sure that they're agree with everything that's in here.
What have
Some
we
point.
what have we disagreed with?
We change it. This is not,
Yeah.
this is just a draft.
She sent
What
the.
language do you disagree with?
Oh, I don't. She wants to see if that she sent us last Wednesday the rules, the policies and procedures in preparation for this meeting and wants to make sure that we don't have any problems with it. It's just a draft, so before she finalizes it, I think it was last Wednesday or so.
So are there any does anybody on the dais want to make changes?
No, I was fine with what I read.
Okay, let's see. I think the only issue that I had, which I've discussed with you, was something that apparently was internal and was recommended by the director, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pulling up the policy now, just so that we can. Not to exceed $25,000, which I think that language is changed from the original amendment, which had 50, I thought.
When we had our brainstorming session, we came up with both 25 and 50.
Okay, so we'll go with 25 because it's here.
So the Affordable Housing Commission did the final draft.
Would 25 be too low though? Because then if you think of an issue like the Clay Street issue, would that even, his project is well over $25,000, correct?
Whose project?
The Clay Street issue, I'm not going to put out the person's name, but the property that is requesting assistance there?
Okay, I didn't know, I'm not familiar.
I'm sure you are.
Well, I'm familiar with the person, but I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with the amount in which property it is.
So if we could change that to 50, that'll be great. That's one note. 5 or less properties, that's in line with the original amendment. Existing renter of property undergoing rehabilitation in this program should not be assessed a rent increase. That's in line with what we originally did. eligible use of program funds, code violation, accessibility improvements, failing building systems, health and safety, structural, administrative expenses, eligible properties, rental unit in the city has active city rental licenses, the household income in the rental unit is at or below. That is in line with all of our standard income requirements, correct?
I'm sorry?
The household's income in the rental unit is at or below 120% of the area median income?
That's what was requested in the brainstorming session.
Okay, so I'm assuming that is what we discussed, just about making it so that the most vulnerable families are impacted. Application fee is $500. I don't remember that, and that should be taken off.
That was something that was recommended by the commission.
Okay, yeah, that should be taken off.
Didn't someone on the commission have experience implementing this with the county or anything on the?
Yeah, I mean, not specifically with rental rehab,
Yeah,
but with housing programs.
yeah, they had a brainstorming on.
I realize that, but
policies.
again, if I'm a landlord and I can't afford the upkeep of my property, can I afford a $500 application fee?
If you're a landlord, I would hope that you would be able to afford a $500.
I don't know.
Application fee
Have you
that
seen
you-
some of these properties?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that all the properties that we're going to work with are already licensed, and they meet code, and they're licensed. So,
Okay. I guess we keep the fee in because we will have to pay the nonprofit that we built that will be administering this. So everything else looks fine. And so if there are no other questions from
Do you think the fee would be a deterrent?
I mean, it could possibly be a deterrent.
I think the fee's appropriate and acceptable because it is needed to, once we get this figured out for how we're going to administer it, it would help us pay for that.
That's true.
And we are using this for properties that are licensed, so they are somewhat familiar with our process. It's not going to be things overly. It's going to be for things licensed, so they're going to have some experience dealing with us, and we can work with them on it.
Okay.
so the only change is to increase from 25 to 50?
Yeah, I think that's it about as of now. I mean, running through everything, it looks fine to me, and no one else has any questions or concerns. State-led registration, city rental license, evidence of income. Yep, I think we're good.
Okay.
So you will, next steps will just finalizing policy. It'll go to the public, correct?
Well, I'll make the change, and then I need to know from the law office whether or not this is something that has to go in the paper, because I got two different answers
Okay.
on that. So someone needs to follow up. Well, we have somebody from
Yeah, but he just stepped out.
The more expedited way would be to consider these administrative provisions that the department is structured in terms of how we administer the program, which we're able to do. The more complicated approach, but the more transparent one, is to go through the public process and post them, and
Yeah, which is-
as official rules and procedures.
right,
When-
which
when-
costs $2,000.
When this happened, I mean, yeah, and we told
Wow.
the alderman that when he put that amendment in, that there would be unintended consequences and it would ruin the progress that we're making. And now here we are having staff trying to scrape up $2,500 to put an ad in the newspaper that nobody is going to read, And so it's just, it's ridiculous. But I do appreciate your help. You've been working on this with us since October, as well as the committee, which I'm greatly appreciative of. I'll follow up in that thread that we have this afternoon or tomorrow, just so that we can figure out what law wants us to do. And from there, I think we're good to go, because then we'll have to, put it out to bid, for somebody to actually run and manage this program. And so that'll be interesting, because how many housing,
Were there any lessons learned from the county on why it failed, or can we find out?
I can find out.
It'd be good to know,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
Maybe it was,
It's if we operate this the same way as our owner-occupied rehab program, it requires a lot of oversight
yeah.
on the landlord, on their contractor,
Okay.
Okay.
because it's public money. There's agreements that have to be drafted.
Tracking rent increases.
Yeah.
There's a lot of involvement in the private transactions between tenant and landlord that the staff would have, or a person, an entity would have to track.
Teresa, if part of it is ARPA money, do we have to report, does that make reporting even more difficult, or is that just, does that matter? Is it?
I'm not
is
sure
that
if we,
Teresa's- I mean, or is Jody? I don't know how that works. Because receiving ARPA money, I know Jody has to, do a lot of accounting on it.
I don't think we are using ARPA money. I think this came straight from one-time only fund.
No, it's half and half. At
Okay.
least I think that's what it was.
I thought the original number was just from one-time only.
I don't know, I called it up to look at it, and at the time. Anyways.
You might actually be right, so I can ask her about that, because that has to be spent before the end of the fiscal year, right?
Yeah, it's, where are you here? Gay. I looked at the big number here.
Yeah, because it was $1 million at first.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. Here's are all together.
Yeah, it should be right up in here somewhere. All right, well, we just gotta, oh,
Here it
okay.
is right here.
Oh, yeah, it does. It has $250,000 of ARPA funding, so we will have to figure that out with the finance director ASAP, which may be good, because then we may not have to go through all this mess, and they may just let us, yeah. So, all right, I'll follow up then with you tomorrow, and we will just figure out what next steps are, but everything looks good. I'm glad the committee has it. Hopefully, we don't have to publish it. It can go to rules, and then we're good to go.
I don't know if you could, that legislation could be reconsidered, because
If I published it in full, it would cost, when I did the rental assistance program, put that in the paper, if I had published it in full, as required for 30 days, it would have cost $15,000.
That's crazy.
But I didn't. I published it, I put it in the paper as, you can find the full here, online. Because it is online. I don't,
Yeah, and publicly accessible does not,
but we were able to cut it down.
I don't know how, I think it's loosely defined, so. All right, no, any other questions on this ID?
No, thank you and the commission for brainstorming these policies.
Do I have a physical agenda?
Okay,
You
I
good?
will get this to you tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Did we do,
We postponed.
did you approve the amendments?
The minutes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it, Brooks was chairing, we did
Can
an
I,
agenda, we did minutes.
what's the next item?
And then we passed on the resolution. We passed on the moratorium resolution because it didn't make sense to do anything with it without the ordinance.
Because my thing is,
Okay, so next is, well, I have my thing, hello. Here you go.
yeah, what is it?
I don't know.
Is it,
Wilborn Estate update?
R5523? No.
Oh, yeah, R55, that temporary moratorium on short-term.
Oh, okay.
Brooks didn't want to act on it until we saw the ordinance.
Okay.
Goes hand in hand with the ordinance, right?
All right, let's just do it. Yeah. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is R5523 legislation.
That's the one we passed, we took no action on.
So do you want to just make a motion to postpone it, or?
I think it was, isn't the ordinance coming our way, or did that already?
It was postponed in the committee, I mean, at the council meeting, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was postponed.
Okay.
but
Okay.
Actually, it's going back on Monday because it's being kicked out of committee.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't referred to your committee, so on.
So we'll just postpone this, so for the sake of time.
And on Monday, ask for it to go.
I'll just postpone it, and whatever we do Monday, we do. Let's make a motion to postpone R5523. So move.
So moved.
Am I hearing a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is
The rental,
ID 1924, which was the Wilborn Estates, but what we're gonna do is combine that with ID 3624, which is the planning and zoning update. Let's do ID 3524, Office of Community Services, and then we'll do planning and zoning right after that. Ready?
the presentation. And it's on here,
And Joel, if you wouldn't mind noting, we had a question from the planning and zoning in regards to the rental rehabilitation update, and if we actually have to publish those items or not. If you could just kind of figure that out for us, that'd be great.
so just, who else is in the audience? Melissa's here. When is her?
She'll be in the next one,
Okay,
CNI update.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So no Wilborn?
Nope.
Really? Okay.
All right. Do you want to start? Okay.
Sure thing. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Lee. I'm the Social Work Care Coordinator and Acting Manager for the Office of Community Services. And I'm here today with Ms. Jada Boykin, who is our Rental Assistance Associate. So today, we're just going to give like a quick 2023 review of the Office of Community Services.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I accidentally jumped ahead.
This is the hotel tax money, right?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
There we go. All right, so currently our office is broken down into these particular in this organizational chart, and we have the OCS manager spot, which is currently open, but we're happy to report that on February the 15th, it will be filled, and she shall be getting introductions to everyone during that week as well, so we're very excited for that. And also broken down to our social work coordinator, which is myself. Our community services coordinator position is currently open right now. We also have our Hispanic case manager, Ms. Minia Bolivar, and our rental assistance associate, Ms. Jada Boykin, and our enrollment associate, Ms. Evis Prado.
All right, so 2 openings.
So yes, we do currently have 2 openings, but I know on the 15th, the manager position will be filled. But we're currently still looking for a community coordinator.
So after the 15th, yeah, okay, fantastic. The only one that is community service coordinator. Yep.
Yes. Mhm.
Question. I did, and I wish that the deputy city manager was here. I did have a chance to look at the candidate. My question is, in reference to that, is just, obviously you've been in the role, Aaron's been in the role, or Laura's been in the role previously. Do you feel that that is the best candidate?
I do, based on looking at her credentials, her resume, learning more about her background. Yes, I do feel that she was a great candidate. I know for myself, the question has been asked to step up to the role of manager. I found that social work is my passion, and that's something that I do want to continue to do, the on-ground work, and continue working as a social worker for the city.
I'm sure.
You're good at it.
Yeah, and we enjoy you. Definitely, I do. I looked at the resume.
Okay.
I would have liked a little more community service experience in organizing. I think that's critical, but that's, hopefully while we can be a backbone to her and, give her some resources to expand the office in the upcoming budget, so that it's not all on one person. But I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, so just a very brief check-in just about our particular roles that we have broken down with the Office of Community Services. So for the social work care coordinator, their main responsibilities are with case management and service coordination. And so referrals for assistance are typically received from the mayor's office, social service organizations, local schools, or even the resident contacting your office directly. And just a quick rundown of what case management is in this particular role. And it's a method of providing services where a social worker assesses the needs of the client, arranges, coordinates, monitors, evaluates, and advocates for a package of multiple services to meet the client's complex needs.
And who's currently doing?
Oh, yes, that would be myself.
What's your caseload?
So right now, currently, my caseload is about, I would say last time I counted, it's about 12 clients right now,
Okay.
Which is typical. I would say for many social workers, that caseload may get up to 30, just depending on the needs of the clientele.
Yeah, and most of the, I'm assuming is housing.
Yes, I would say that is also a big part, also the mental health piece, just as well as general financial assistance concerns, as well as connections with, I would say for disability needs, special assistance needs. Those are a pretty good breakdown of my clientele.
Awesome, thank you.
Alrighty. And so for our Hispanic case navigator, as well as our enrollment associate, one of their biggest jobs with OCS is Hispanic engagement.
Do we want them to come up? I mean, yeah.
Sure, I would be more than happy just to speak on them, but they're more than welcome to come on up as well.
Where, I know where you are, where does everybody sit, work? Do you have space? Or is that-
No.
I thought I'd bring that up. Okay.
So currently, I occupy at City Hall, an office there.
Yeah.
Yes, I currently work out of there. I would say everyone else also works part-time. And so all the positions right now are currently part-time positions where they work out of City Hall, out of the Social Services Building with OLA. They may have work from home days, and also the Stanton Center or Robinwood. So that's how we kind of space each other out.
Okay.
And so currently, we just have about, just some quick statistics. So currently, about a quarter of our Annapolis community identifies as Hispanic, according to a survey that was done in 2021. And it also shows that 82% of Hispanic Annapolitans are also monolingual Spanish speakers. So this just indicates an urgency for a language access plan, to have translation funds for the city, an urgency for having more Spanish-speaking case managers, in order to engage our low-income Hispanic families that also speak Spanish. And also what our Ismenia and EVs also help out a big deal with is the advocacy and events such as the Taco Fest, the Day of the Dead, and that also includes our youth poetry book contest as well. And Ismenia currently handles about 4 or 5 cases per week. Some are quick referrals, some may need many months of case management. And for example, some of these cases may involve domestic violence, health insurance, getting health insurance resources together, trafficking cases, homelessness prevention, referral for things like food stamps, financial assistance, as well as coordinating consular visits for passport processing, birth reports, voting cards, etc. And so at this time, we'd like to talk about our rental assistance program. And for that, I'd like to pass that on to...
Any questions on the Hispanic engagement? Alderman Tierney, Shandelmeyer?
No.
Okay. If we could do at some point, I should have requested it from you, just financial breakdown of the office, like how much discretionary funding do they have, or what support services do they need in planning all of these events. And we don't have funding, so I'm curious, how are you solving the 4 or 5 cases a week without funding? I mean, heavily relying on the county, I'm assuming.
Yep. Did you want to?
Oh, don't forget to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Ivis Hernandez, and I'm the associate from OCS. Me and Ismenia, we handle 4 to 5 cases per week, mostly at OLA. And then most of them are all with the same situation, housing or BGE assistant, water assistance. So we use social services, we work with community actions, so churches actually, or the Church Emmanuel is a big Hispanic church in the Hispanic community, which sometimes they have funds, but it needs to be like an emergency, we would like to help everybody, but it's not possible. So we only take cases if they have an eviction notice or something like that. Otherwise, it's nothing that we can do, unfortunately. But yeah, we don't have, the shelters are full. We don't have that much help in the county, so it's really difficult to see single mothers going through all this situation. But yes.
Could you be more specific? What do you mean you don't have help from the county?
So like I said, shelters are full. It's a waiting list for like 3-4 months, and some of the people that need help, they only have like a week to pay rent or whatever. But yes, we would like to have more help from the county and stuff like that.
I was told today,
Noted.
actually, that they are now sending families to live in Lothian, which is in Bowie, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
they're parking there.
Yeah, it's they don't have the space.
Yeah, they don't. Last client we have, they say we have tent. So
And
basically.
so that's just backwards to me. Imagine you being already in poverty. Your house or whatever is, you either lose your house from eviction or your house is offline. So they're moving you to some hotel, 25 minutes away from your actual home. Then you're having to pay. It's just backwards. It's backwards. Continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm fine.
Yep, and we found these challenges pretty much across the board amongst all Annapolitans who apply for services with our agency. We do a lot of referrals, whether it be through churches, and this is when we did have funds for rental assistance. We did take on those cases where folks may have hit a brick wall. In other places, we did help for that particular type of assistance, but we do normally do referrals to local churches such as St. Vincent de Paul, Annapolis EP Church. They've been a great partner as far as helping out residents, and also with different other nonprofits such as ACDS, the Community Action Agency. We've done referrals to them as well.
And getting back to Alderman Gay's question, the new, what's her title, director or manager,
Yes.
she'll do a budget, right? That's probably one of her first tasks.
Yes, that will definitely be one of our first tasks. That's something that right now, and I do apologize, we don't have that information right now as far as the budget goes.
Understood.
We'll be reviewing that with the assistant city manager as well as the city manager.
Yep.
It's totally fine, and I get it. Obviously, you all are handcuffed without staff, and so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the rental assistance. You had
Sure.
next up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll pass it on to Jada Boykin, our rental assistance associate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jada. I'm the rental assistance associate, and I run the program in its entirety. So first, I want to start by saying that these funds are from the occupancy taxes. So this year we had about 160,000 that was gone July, and we stopped accepting new applicants in October, just because of how. For applications, I was looking at 50 applications a week, and this is a part-time role, so I am taking on all 50 within 20 hours a week. Of course, it usually goes over, but just a quick rundown of how the process is so long for a check to get to the client. So they apply, they have to make sure they have all their documents. The most common challenge we faced was a tenant not having an active rental license, because that is not the tenant's fault, but the tenant can't receive assistance if that's not checked off on the list. So that was one of the biggest challenges that was faced. But otherwise, just having your documents, not only do you have to have all your documents from each of these people, which is about 6 documents that I'm responsible for getting from each applicant at about 10 applicants a day. So once you have that, you have to get the check requested to finance, which is a whole nother process. But another challenge that we faced was the check issuance took a month or longer. So by the time a tenant received the check, they have incurred a new balance. So if you apply for June and you're not receiving your check until July, you now are behind on July rent. So it faced a big issue as well with evictions, because properties they don't have to wait for our check. So we had people that got put out even with the check on the way, just because the property can't. They tell us that it's not promising, even though they get a promissory note. It's upper management from property management.
I'm wondering quickly, and I'm just kind of moving us through this because we have the slides, so we're able to read, and then we have 2 presentations behind. I don't want everybody waiting. On the rental assistance statistics, what happens, obviously, this is going off of occupancy tax and 3% of it. How did it drop so significantly from fiscal year 23 to 24?
We received less money for 24.
Was it?
Because when I came
I can't imagine that
That's weird.
the occupancy tax would drop
We didn't. No, we got.
that much. And so I'm wondering if you all may have not received all the money that you were supposed to.
I do know that we had additional $13,000 moved over recently, and that's been currently on hold for emergency. But when I started FY24, I seen 160,000. But it definitely, we helped more people in 23. I'm not sure it's because it was money already started before I started the program.
Oh.
And maybe that's why was more.
Would our finance
Well-
chair look at that for us?
Yeah, no, I think she's right. I think they had a balance, and so now that they get it directly from hotel tax, it doesn't come from
Was there a
anywhere else.
balance before? I thought the program was from scratch.
Yeah, what would the balance be from? I don't know.
Maybe it
I can think
did.
of- all I know is that the hotel tax didn't go down, but yeah, I'll look at that.
Also, I'm
Make sure you get it all this year.
looking at the top 3 neighborhoods. I'm wondering if it would actually be smart in the next budget cycle to take like $5,000 and do some sort of rental responsibility fair or something. I don't know, but the top 3 properties are the top 3 properties.
We did try to do send a whole amount for them. Well, when the checks start getting slow, we had proposed the idea to send a check in a larger amount, but the properties said they weren't able to do it that way and just allocate it to the tenant's account.
I'm more looking at maybe as the part of the Office of Community Services, get with the property manager and, see just how can we assist, because clearly if, Bay Ridge Gardens, Annapolis Gardens, and then HACA, I'm assuming that's a combination of Eastport Terrace, Harbor House, Robinwood, Newtown 20.
Yes.
Just working with those property managers and saying, okay, what services are being missed here, or how can we step in as a city to provide a service or maybe a class to just help with training or communication with the property manager or something, so that maybe next time around it is not those same 3 properties. You get what I'm saying?
No, I completely understand. And actually, as some of my research, we did reach out to the Office of Community Services over in Gaithersburg, and they have actually a very unique banking program that helps with helping folks with their credit, getting up to date on their bills, and it's all free and basically funded by grants. And so that's also through the Cities for Financial Empowerment, the Bank On program. And so that's something that I'm currently learning more about. I will say we did hit a little speed bump there. In order to qualify for those grant funds, you have to be in a city that's over 50K. Currently, Annapolis is around 40,000. However, we could still work with the Anne Arundel County in order to bring banking programs like that to the city to help folks, so if they do find themselves in need of rental assistance, it's not something that they'll need to have every year.
You said the model was in Gaithersburg?
Yes. So that's with the Office of Community Services over in Gaithersburg.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, please.
Sure. Yeah, just, we, last month I was able to visit that particular center. They've been there for 25 years, and also a big part of their program is their financial empowerment.
It would be great to talk to them to just piggyback off of some of their ideas.
Gaithersburg.
I just will definitely take a look at that. Any other questions on rental assistance from the committee? Alderman Shandelmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the work that you do on this. You are helping a lot of people on 20 hours a week. That's monumental. You need to be commended. I want to ring the alarm bell. I know this is our choir and I am preaching to it, but we ran out of money for our rental assistance program less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our housing crisis is very real. And this body as a whole is not taking it seriously. And when I say this body, I don't mean this committee. This committee is leaders on this issue. We are 3 of 9.
That's really a great point.
I mean, just even to the point where you said, I've heard even from the chief of police that, a lot of the larger grants are for 50,000 and above. And it's like, well, if we just simply raise our density, we'll be there by next week, because there clearly is the demand, obviously. I mean, and so any other pressing issues on rental assistance? For me, the big thing is I thank, Alderman, I seen you.
Yeah, one more thing. I also want to say thank you. You've connected a couple of my constituents, my personal favorite being Miss Irene Nelson. One of the sweetest people I know with this, and it really means a lot to me. It means a lot to her, and you really are doing some great work here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's really first come, first serve on the applications?
Yes, and we also do, depending on the budget, especially emergency situations as well. Just making sure that we can, if someone is closer to that eviction, we can handle their request first.
Okay.
So when you receive, in ArcGIS, when you receive the applications, I do go in them in order, but of course I look at more of what is the pressing issue, because some people, they really only request, sometimes it's $100. Sometimes it's not always thousands, but then we do have people who come and it's $14,000.
Yeah.
But the biggest piece is there are a lot of returning people, but it is set up to where you can only apply once in the calendar year.
Yeah.
But we've been trying to think about some type of maybe financial program, like we were just saying, where is the hiccup that people they keep returning. Yeah. And then of course I did have a few people that they faced some health issues and they were just out of work for a month, or they were unemployed for 1 month and it was just a catch up that they needed, and then those people they never reapplied.
When you speak of elderly that their Social Security doesn't cover the rent, that's never going to change.
Right.
So they could ask for it monthly.
But the reason that we did include the requirements of employment and limited to 1 calendar year is so that we could make the funds spread out throughout the year.
Yeah.
And it went quick. Like, I mean, we kind of knew it was gonna go quick, but it went quicker than we.
Question also, and in the process moving forward, can we restart applications? Meaning, if you applied in fiscal year 24, we clear the slate. So all of those applications, regardless where you were in line, the fiscal year starts over. So you should essentially be reapplying again.
Yeah, so you're allowed to do that. I have my tracking sheet is set up through fiscal years. So I have it, so like, I mean, the person who runs this program, you have to go back to that tracking sheet to make sure you're not awarding someone money that just applied last month. So that's just one extra thing you have to keep up with. But the ArcGIS data is more geographical, but the tracking sheet in Excel is all numbers. So like in your tracking sheet, it shows like the first name, last name, address. We have why, if you got denied, why you got denied. But if you got denied in FY23 because you didn't have a job and you come back a few months later, you're not denied again if you have a job. You just can't, if I give you $3,000 in June, I can't give you another $3,000 in July. But if you come back, if that was January and you come back the next January, then we restart it. We don't have it's just once you get it that year. But the tracking sheet is another thing, a big thing about the program, and whoever will take over it next, it's something that's the biggest piece because you're dealing with all of this money. And there was instances where a property didn't receive a check. And I was responsible for contacting that property, like, did it not come in the mail? And we had that happen. Like, some of them, it got returned, but you have to, not only are you requesting a check from finance, you're responsible for making sure the property received the check and that the property allocated it to the tenant's account, because there were instances that they didn't do that either. So whoever takes over the program next is not, I mean, it's not hard, but it's a lot of work for it to be a part-time role. And if you can't work under pressure, I just don't think it's not gonna be successful as a whole program. Mm-hmm. And I mean, of course you have help from your teammates, but if you're in charge of running the program, you have the relationship with the property manager. You're the one who knows how to request a check in Munis. And I have created a whole book on how to do the process from step to step. So whoever does come in next, they can have the book, and I created one for the whole team as well, so they have it. And I've taught them how to do everything step by step, because it was no program. We had to implement this and make it a way to do it step by step. But I just think in the future, it should be considered as a full-time role.
So you created the Excel spreadsheet and everything on your own? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions on rental assistance?
The only thing I don't get is why wouldn't they have a rental license? Like, what, isn't that a factor? Like,
Well, you get your rental license taken when you fail the inspection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right, and so they're asking probably for something to fix to make the inspection, right?
Yeah,
It's like
Yeah,
Or
pretty
just
much.
it's not funny, but it's,
or just off the book rentals
Yeah.
is another thing.
yeah.
I personally stayed in one of those.
But that's probably the thing.
I think we have very few of
They can't afford
those.
to fix whatever's wrong. Did they use that? Is that sometimes the reason they're asking, is they need to fix to meet inspection?
No,
Some people just,
the property, I mean, the individual wouldn't be asking for funding to fix up their that's the
No, I
responsibility
mean,
of
is
the.
that,
well, like for some properties, they were failing inspection because the property isn't fixing the issues in the house.
Yeah,
but the
they
tenant
use, Yeah, exactly.
They
You
can't use
can't.
the
Yeah,
money.
you can't use rental assistance money. That's why we just had a rental rehabilitation bill before us,
Right.
so that they do have a fund. Let's move on though quickly
yep,
because we
yep.
gotta
yep,
community grants, grant programs. Obviously, the adopted community is Alderwoman Finlayson's program, correct?
Yes, that would be her program. And that's something that, when our new manager will be coming in, we'll be meeting with her along with the city management staff in order to reopen that particular grant program.
So is it operating now? I haven't heard a thing.
Oh, sure. So right now we are in the process of meeting with Alderwoman Finlayson, along with the new manager, as well as with Victoria, the assistant city manager. And yes, we'll be meeting as a group in order to reestablish the particular organizations that worked with us last fiscal year. We would like to re-award them the same funds, but it's still, an application process. It's still up for review, so nothing has been set in stone just yet.
Okay, yeah, because I think I love when we do these programs, but the thing is, and I'm very liberal, so when you have me being the fiscal hawk,
No,
and I think sometimes we just come up with these
spread ourselves too.
community programs, and it's like, what is going on? I haven't heard a thing from this. I knew that there were supposed to be churches assigned to two communities in Ward 6, one in particular to Eastport Terrace and Harbor House, the other the Bay Ridge Gardens. I haven't heard a thing. I knew at one point they got a $50,000 check, and then it was
Yeah.
$50,000 is a lot for the city to give to someone and there not be a constant pool of communication so we know what's going on. So I look forward to, it's not my program, but just as someone that's chairing the Housing and Human Welfare Committee and someone that's extremely passionate about your office, the Office of Community Services, I would just, because again, what I don't want to happen is that we get into the budget season and we're trying to fully fund your office and my colleagues are like, well, we gave you 1.5 million last year. What's happening, And so, any other questions on the adopted community?
No.
Children and family success?
Yes, so that is currently closed right now for new applications, and that's something, we'll be meeting with you, Alderman Gay. I know myself, the new manager, as well as the assistant city manager shall be meeting in order to reopen that program again.
And I doubt this will get funded this year, which is sad because I've introduced this 2 years in a row. It's been incredibly successful. The communities enjoy it because it's free daycare. We're giving this funding to daycares and academic institutions in the city to provide care throughout the summers, and it's worked. But again, big scheme. Fully funding OCS, small scheme, we'll have to lose some of these programs.
Which one does the poetry?
Oh, sure. So the
That's not from this, right?
yes, so the no, it's not under the grant program. So the youth poetry contest.
My favorite.
Oh yes, no, it was a wonderful event and it was enjoyed, by all, and that was something that EVC and Ismenia helped to organize and coordinate along with several other businesses such as Center of Help, OLA, the Annapolis High School, and these were poems that were taken from Annapolis High School students, and they were allowed to present over at, was it St. John? Oh, thank you. Yep, St. John's College.
Awesome.
And yes, and that was like a wonderful one-night event. And the books, we were actually very surprised this year. We had a request for numerous books this year. So we're definitely gonna have to make plans to double and triple our efforts for the next year.
And the artwork goes into it.
The what?
The artwork, the cover of the book. And everything.
Oh, yes.
I thought it was part of this, but.
Can the applications, and I know you'll maybe have to ask Vicky, but if you wouldn't mind getting back to me this week, the applications for the community grants, the process is skewed because I think the community never really knows when the actual applications are out. They closed in, was it January the 31st or February, or do they close in February?
Oh, so they do close in February. Okay. So they'll close on Thursday, February the 15th at 4:30 p.m.
I think we need to extend that by 2 weeks and, have Mitchell send out a press release again, do some blast on social media, and just making sure that the public is aware. The community grants are our most popular program. It's the most popular program even amongst us as the council, that's what we spend most of our time debating every budget.
It's so little money.
Yeah, and I just would like to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to apply.
Sure.
Anything on community grants, anything on Office of Community Services at all. The budget will be helpful. I guess what we'll do is have you back in April, because what that'll do is allow for the new director to come in, get her feet wet, get a budget together, and bring a proposal to us. Obviously, we would like to see all of them full time. I know that's not you're doing, and I know we'll have that conversation with Vicky.
Working full-time.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And it's like, you can't have people doing public service work, breaking their back, and they're part-time. Because what is that reflects poorly on us in our Office of Community Services.
Yeah.
And so, anybody else?
I want to say it reflects poorly on the office. They're rock stars. It reflects poorly on us as a government, though.
You're right.
Government body, not the office.
Thank you so much for your work.
No, as I know, you're very welcome, and thank you for having us here today as well.
Of course, really appreciate it. See you all soon, and look forward to meeting the new woman in charge. Thank you, Erin, very much.
As you are as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Y'all have a good night.
So let's bring everybody up at the same time, if we could. Melissa, our Planning and Zoning Department. Huh?
No, what I was trying,
Yeah.
no, what I was trying to get at there is.
Thank you all so much. This is exciting because of all that's been going on, and I just think it's so important that we set the record straight for the public and for the council, just so we have a better understanding of the operations between you all. So I guess we'll talk about the permitting process and the relationship between the two units, and then at the end we can do CNI stuff and just kind of catch up. So obviously we've gotten to a situation where we have a select few group of properties, which I don't mind calling out: Admiral Oaks, Annapolis Gardens. Who else do we have here?
Bay Ridge.
Yeah, I think Bay Ridge. Yeah, Bay Ridge, who have had these issues with the units offline. Obviously HACA, but I consider HACA separate case, special group. With the others, I know you all are redoing or re-examining the inspection process. Would you mind, just kind of catching us up to where you all are in those conversations, maybe some of the challenges that you've had, and how our body can help you? Because it seemed like a minute there, everybody was getting beat up. Us, you all, and so just clarity so that we can kind of move forward would be fantastic.
Okay, well, I guess I can start. I'm happy to start. And happy to say that the person sitting to my left is a great friend of our department. And I've spent a few hours with Melissa at her office and enjoyed a nice tour of the HACA properties. And I really look forward to continued collaboration with Melissa and her staff and to advance our shared interests. And in that regard, to this committee, the items that you address and show leadership on that overlap with the mission of planning and zoning are of utmost importance to me as planning director. I care about them a lot, and I feel honored to be able to participate in this foundational work that's very special, visceral, has direct human impact, is not as abstract as land use planning and transportation, but has real impact on the lives of people in the city. So I'm energized by this committee. And you had asked on the agenda anyway, it said something broadly about the Department of Planning. And I just wanted to mention that as we are experiencing some transition in our planning department, with the retirement of Teresa Wellman, we will be increasing our emphasis on community development. In fact, we'd like to see community development, and the word development in this broader sense of developing a sound, equitable, broad-based, strong community as foundational in all that we do, so that rather than that position being aligned entirely with HUD and the Community Development Block Grant and some programs, it has a whole nother portfolio that's broader. It's part of our comprehensive planning mission within the city. So we hope that the new person will essentially staff this committee, will attend your committee meetings, will be an assistant to you, and will bring back your priorities to the staff and serve in a kind of senior management role with the rest of us in the planning and zoning department.
And I should have started with that in mentioning that I love the planning department. I worked very, very well with Jackie Rouse, who had been there forever. I know you're about to lose, like they said, 125 years in combined experience in the planning department. That's crazy. And as you all start to restructure as well,
right,
you have our support and patience, understanding that there will be some turnover. And
I'm sorry, it's the first I've heard that. That's absolutely incredible news. I mean, I was always one that we should have a housing czar right there in the mayor's office, so that's really great to hear. It should be elevated. It's so important. And
and John and I can attest that we are making a lot of tweaks to the permitting process and the administration of the permitting and inspections process, and elevating certain staff, moving staff into positions of authority that don't exist right now. But all this will be described in some detail to the full City Council on February 15th. So I won't get into the details now, but I hope you'll see that the priorities of this committee can be better expressed and realized by the approach that we're taking.
Is the 15th a work session?
Yes, it's a work session.
Okay.
Yes.
So question.
3 to 5 p.m.
Okay. Question is, so we can just jump into things.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that we separate HACA from the other properties, because obviously you all are working on something as well, just because, again, it's a separate issue that needs a separate focus. So with the other properties, before we delve into this, how are you assessing inspections and following up on, the constant complaints of mold? Like, for example, in Admiral Oaks, I know that when we had them here last October, I think after that, Mary and her team, they did inspections on every single unit. Alderwoman Pendell Charles even attended some of the inspections with her. At the time, there were 17 units or something that may have had issues. They went through those issues. It was, reported everything was fine. And then we pop back up again, 2 months later, and there's just chaos again. I know you can't attest to what is actually going on the property, but what is the reality there for us? Because I feel like it's also burning our resources if we have to keep inspecting the same properties over and over again.
John?
yeah, John.
Good evening, John Manasseh, Chief of Code Enforcement and Planning and Zoning. To answer that question, a lot of our procedures have not changed. We still operate a rental licensing program, which involves inspections, and then we respond to complaints from tenants or others that involve a property. So whenever somebody comes to us with an issue about their property, usually tenant is the driving force there. We go out and investigate it as soon as we can, usually within 24 hours. Our procedure there is to gain access to the property, determine what exactly is happening. In the case of Admiral Oaks, what we were discovering is there was some compounding issues. Some of it dealt with just standard maintenance items like the gutters and downspouts hadn't been maintained. They were clogged. That was causing water to sort of pool right around the foundation.
You said that.
Yeah.
And we also had an issue that was more deeply rooted in that some of the grading just over time maybe shifted and created areas that were allowing water to collect on the foundations, and the water wasn't running off through natural terrain. And there may have been, just from the age of the construction, a lack of foundation waterproofing. They may have been built before really that took place, or there could have been the issue of whatever they built at the time of construction just failed due to age. But the underlying problem was there was way too much water resting up against the foundation, and most of their water intrusion problems were just coming through the exterior walls, in some cases to the degree that we found puddles of water on the floor of the property. When you're dealing with something like clogged gutters, that's a relatively easy thing to fix, and you would expect that kind of repair to occur within a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how quickly they can get somebody there to do that work. But a foundation issue could take months to find somebody that can do the design work. Then you've got to allocate funds, you've got to get permits, you've got to do the actual construction. So it's reasonable to take 6 months to do that kind of project. And unfortunately, we had several incidences of large rain, where it was 1-2 inches of rain in the course of a day. And that overwhelmed the property a few times back to back. And so we've been, going forward with our situation at Admiral Oaks specifically, posting properties as uninhabitable because of the amount of water intrusion and subsequent mold problems. We do run into sometimes where items were placed in storage, they got moldy in storage. When they came out of storage, they're back inside the dwelling after it's been sort of repaired. And that creates a new problem. Some things aren't necessarily easily visible to us or our inspectors. Sometimes it's difficult to see the underside of things, like underside of couches, behind couches, underneath cushions. Like, we don't necessarily inspect to that level. We're taking the cushions off a couch to check. But, we're working through all those problems, and I really feel like over the past 4 to 5 months, things have been relatively quiet. We haven't had a new incoming barrage that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping we're turning the corner on some of those.
Question: when incidents happen as such with the, like you mentioned, the downspouts, etc., that's a small thing that you should hopefully be fixed. With the grading, how do you hold a property accountable for something like that? Because when we had Admiral Oaks here, they were not interested in investing capital dollars into anything. And so if they won't do that, then the property will just continue to be inhabitable. So it's kind of a two-part question, I guess. The first being, do we have anything in the code that gives us leverage or authority to, make them grade the property appropriately? And two, what does fining look like for that?
Go ahead.
Oh. Go ahead, please, Alderwoman. You showing them the photos from the, yeah.
No, I was just curious. This was just something that I noticed, these units, like against the back side, when you say the water goes down, and these guys aren't on, I don't think they're on pads, so I was just wondering if that's something that you noticed, or?
Oh, the air handling condensers there, yeah. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know if that particular photograph represents one of the locations where water was pooling.
Right, no, this is just an example of what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, in this instance, we're seeing a picture of the HVAC condenser sitting directly on the ground rather than elevated on a pedestal of some sort. Yeah.
So things like that too is I'm assuming would be capital, use of capital dollars. So can the city hold people accountable and require that they, can the city hold people accountable and require that they, have a capital improvement plan and, hold them to a timeline on?
Well, the tool we have is noticing a deficiency and citing the deficiency and requiring it to be corrected. In a complicated situation like Admiral Oaks was experiencing, we don't necessarily have the technical expertise in our office to definitively say what's causing water to come into the basement. We can suspect there's a drainage tile problem and foundation waterproofing problem. We can suspect that, but we don't really have the ability to declare that, or we don't have the ability to say that that's definitively the problem. Right. Reworking gutter and downspouts to clear them and have water channeled away could very well solve the problem. Like a lot of times, I think good risk management would tell you to start with the low-hanging fruit and try to fix it as economically as possible. And if that fixes the problem, it would satisfy us because we would say, okay, the problem apparently has been fixed. We did kind of think just by looking at where puddling was that there was a larger issue. And we do have the ability to say, okay, you've got a standing water problem. It's too close to the foundation. There is a code provision that requires that to be corrected. Mm-hmm. But again, coming up with a solution is outside of our scope. We don't provide solutions. We don't provide engineering. We are saying we identify a problem to the best of our ability. You have to fix it. Yeah. It's your job to come up with that engineering. Now,
when they don't fix it, and that's what I kind of get upset with because we don't have, and I feel the public's frustration because they want, take it to the man, hold the big guy accountable. I wish we could. I don't know, and that's why I thought it'd be important to have you both here. In the code, can the city fine a property, if you come back after the follow-up inspection and the issue persists? Are you able to start to fine them, and what is the fine amount?
We can fine based on continuing violations. Usually the first time we notice a violation, it's a $200 fine. Some of them escalate where if the fine continues, you can re-fine them an escalating amount. Maybe it's double, but up to every week you can re-fine them. But that's extreme. We rarely do that. Mm-hmm.
But is that necessary? Do we change that and actually start? Because my thought also is that I would like the Office of Law to put together legislation that would actually significantly increase those fines. Because I think the deterrent is so low that the properties don't have a reason to, outside of not wanting to look bad in the newspaper, they don't have a reason to really fix the property.
I understand that perspective, and we can reevaluate the steps that we take. Mm-hmm. The code does provide adequate tools. One of the most dramatic tools, I would say from the owner's perspective, is being told this unit is condemned, mm-hmm. and you no longer have it available to rent to somebody. That's a pretty heavy blow to a property owner. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, okay, we have one goal, and I was having this conversation earlier. Our whole mission is to maintain a quality housing stock for the whole community that has adequate and good, safe housing to live in. On the one hand, we want to balance holding people to that standard. And on the other hand, we also recognize that if we make things so devastating and so harsh that the property owners then struggle. And we were just talking about it in the previous discussion that if the property owner can't afford to do certain things, the property then falls into an unlicensed status. It becomes harder and harder for them to afford things. The $500 application to the program becomes a hurdle because they've got $10,000 or $15,000 worth of corrections to make just to keep the building licensed. So there's a compounding problem. We have to try to weigh that. It's not easy for us to say where is the balance between housing that's not up to standard or that we're too strict and they can't afford to operate anymore. And actually, we lose housing capacity because they just can't afford to operate.
That is true, and
Yeah, you don't
I'm
want
glad
it to
that
be punitive. I mean, that you do that in like an absentee landlord situation to get their attention. But this is different. It's a tough.
Yeah,
balance.
because I mean, you're right, and I didn't. You think that, oh, okay, you put the fine, but to your point, I mean, that just might be like, now we have 18 less units to rent in the city. And so that'll cause significant issues. I still want to be on this item, but I want to give anybody else a chance to jump in at this point on any questions.
I mean, I just want to say that as far as, what is the problem, and, these developments where, they were designed poorly, they're built on crappy land, they're more asphalt. Asphalt ratio is higher than it should be, so you get the run. So it's, so what John's saying is that they can only deal with what is in our code. They're not stamping any drawings or licensed to do any sort of,
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With flooding issues in Admiral Oaks, I do want to say thank you. The night before Thanksgiving, 2023, there was a flooding issue in Admiral Oaks, and I was able to get in touch with you guys despite it being 8 o'clock at night, the night before Thanksgiving, and we were able to find some accommodations for a family that was very severely impacted. So thank you guys on that and for making sure that issue got addressed and fixed.
I would like to point out, summarize a number of procedural process changes that we're implementing, and my coordination with Melissa helped me and our department understand why these changes were necessary. In fact, they would apply to every rental apartment or rental property within the city. So in coordination with Melissa, we've actually, I think, improved conditions universally. And one of the changes that we're implementing is to provide 120 days notice before a rental license expires. Currently, it's 90 days before? 120 days, which gives greater notice and time for property managers, whether public or private, to respond, pay the fee, and get in the queue for inspections. It gives us more time to actually arrange the inspections. It gives the property manager more time to complete the necessary requirements and schedule the re-inspections that are necessary. And we hope that additional time will help prevent situations whereby a project or work cannot get completed in time and the project or the unit expires. So we hope to maintain, renewals in good standing or licenses in good standing. And that's one approach for addressing that.
That's excellent, because by compressing that time, you're introducing another problem. You can't list the unit.
Yeah.
So, but does the 120 day,
Gives him time.
but what does it do to the tenant though? What then happens to the tenant? Nothing? Okay.
Their unit's not condemned.
So so you're saying that if the unit is, just so we're clear here, they go through the inspection, there's an issue, and so once that issue is identified, they have 120 days to repair?
No, it's a 100 days notice prior to the expiration of the license.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry, yeah.
it puts everybody on notice. We're notifying you that you have 120 days, and administratively, we'd like to collect the fee within 30 days and providing 90 days to go through the reinspection process.
Okay.
It just lengthens the process, provides a little more breathing room for us and the property managers to get the work done that's necessary.
Can the process be done electronically? I'm wondering if working, obviously I've said this when we had our retreat a couple of weeks ago with the council. I wish that we expanded MIT and just made everything electric, just so that it's easier to track. I'm sure on your side you're able to track everything electronically and through the computer, but for the public, if I submit a request for an inspection, how am I tracking my request? How do I know, what the next steps are? Is that done via paper, or how is that?
Yeah, it's digitally, but
Yeah, the city website has the Citizen Self-Service Annapolis website where they enter complaints. They can do it by logging in and creating an identity for themselves, but they can also do it anonymously. So there's the opportunity there to check the status of their complaint and also look at other complaints in the area. It's all very public facing and searchable, so that you can log into that site and look up particular properties that you're interested in and find out if there's any building permits, any violations. It's just a public record search. It's wide open to.
Are you talking about SDAT?
No.
Oh,
it's,
okay.
it's the city's webpage. It's like sort of like where the permit portal. It's the licensing portal. It's everything all in one place for electronic submission of any complaints or applying for licenses or building permits. It's all there in the same spot.
Correct?
We're actually celebrating just about 1 year in operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might be new.
Yeah. I thought, that's fantastic then, because I thought it was all still done by either phone or, email or something like that. So.
And a number of years ago, the department began to take on one major project at a time or one complex at a time rather than individuals. And then they were looking at individual stacks of townhouses at a time. If there was a failure within that stack of townhouses, the entire unit was failing. We've since moved beyond that before I was even here, so that if only one unit is failing, it's only one unit that fails. So
was that your issue? Okay, yeah. Okay, fantastic.
That's a really important change that took place before I was even here. But one thing that we are needing to do is to rebalance over the course of the year so that our inspectors are not slammed with multiple large developments that have to do the license renewal inspections at the same time. So this is something that's going to take probably a year to work through the system, but it's underway, and Maria and I were actually just talking about the nuts and bolts of that. And so we don't want situations where multiple large projects arrive on the same month or even back to back. We want to stretch it out, which may mean extending some licenses a little longer than normal to capture that.
I mean, because some properties you just. You can give them the benefit of the doubt, and obviously focus their attention to where there are much more issues, because, you know, I'm thinking of like, well, what's a very good, what's a gold star a complex in Annapolis?
Park Place.
Okay, because you live there. Okay, Park Place is a nice one. And what's the other one off Spy?
No, that's,
No, you know, when you're coming up the hill off of Spy, the Enterprise used to be right across the street from it. It's like Landing Berkshire or something.
on
Landing.
the right.
Yeah, it's on the
Oh,
right.
well, what about the,
Berkshire Landing or something like that? Also, gold property. You know, those certain properties, I feel like, you know, you can get the benefit of that, but there are those where it requires much more focus. How many inspectors do you have? And are they overworked? And I know that last question is kind of like, well, duh, but I want to get it on record because it's important when we are in the budget. It's like, well, we need money for more inspectors, or we need more, you know, code enforcement people on the team, or what, you know, just to help you all. I feel like
We currently are staffed with 4 property maintenance inspectors that primarily focus solely on rental licensing and incoming housing complaints. We have a 5th property maintenance inspector that has double duty. They work later hours and they work on zoning complaints and also noise and activities like around City Dock. So they're kind of like a mix, but they also support the property maintenance inspectors when they're doing the large complexes and try to help give us some extra capacity when the demand is really high. But we do have a large number of rental properties that we're required to inspect every year. You know, it's in that
how many?
6,000 units. So each inspector,
wow,
each inspector's, you know, workload is somewhere in that, you know, 2,000 units per year that they have to cover. And because some of those are inspected every other year, like the actual number of licensed units is closer to 8,000. But some of the complexes have the ability to be inspected every other year. So that takes our annual number down quite a bit.
But then you have the comeback calls or the emergency calls.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
And I will say that this year has been a challenging year. I think the rental community is experiencing some of the economic impacts that you hear about in the news, where prices are rising, labor is a bit of a shortage, and some of the units where some of the complexes where we don't usually have as many violations, we're finding this year they're actually creeping up. You know, there's a lot of units that were vacant and they hadn't been turned between tenants. So the number of re-inspections we were doing this year is higher than normal for some communities.
Wow. And you think it's just because of, I mean, the backlog in materials, all that stuff, they just can't, okay.
That's driving a lot of it.
I don't want to go off on a financial tangent, but you're evaluating that cost and with your fees, your current fees, and making sure that the fees ideally should cover that cost.
Well, they do.
They do?
Our fees are designed to cover the expense of processing applications, providing inspections, and issuing a license. There is a re-inspection component that we can apply. I think we're hesitant to apply re-inspection fees. They're usually if the occupancy is not available to us when we go back. For instance, like it's locked and we can't get in, or the property manager's a no-show on our re-inspection. That's when we would typically apply the fee.
Small fee.
Actually, no, it's a $200 reinspection
okay.
fee.
Wow.
So the license is only $100 and the reinspection fee is $200. So it's a big number, but
so when you're receiving like either funding from failed inspections, the reinspection, or the licensing fee, is that going directly back to planning and zoning, or is that going to the general fund?
Yeah, it's going to the general fund. Nothing goes directly to planning and zoning.
That is what we need to have legislation on, and then that is why I enjoy having people here, because those little things make a difference.
No.
Why would we take?
No.
No, you have to
You
take
have
it
to
out
do
of the
that-
general fund.
You would
Why?
have to do that for every expense.
No, because this is a department that is interfacing directly with people's ability to live in their homes safely without, dying of mold infestation. And so it doesn't make any sense to me that we take that money from them. It should be going directly back to planning and zoning, supporting your staff, but then also supporting the people that are unhoused now. Like, I don't get how is that, why aren't you all able to use that funding for discretionary purposes? I'm sure in your experience, you could come up with 10 things where the funding could be, put to the department.
Wow, we could, but I'm not skilled enough in administrative law and processes to explain how that would work. But the funds do go to the general fund, but our department is funded adequately each year to supply the services that the city asks us to do. So if the council wanted to and the mayor wanted to expand the services we provide based on the revenues that are generated, that discussion could take place. That would be the question to place before the policymakers.
I would like to, and I'm sorry, I'm making note of this to bring it up with law and the city managers and also finance, because you don't want to.
I wouldn't want to set a precedent. I mean, the general fund is general support of the government of, the city of Annapolis, and it's allocated appropriately. It will go to planning and zoning. You can see that when you see the budget, you can see where the money is allocated. I understand your point. You want to make sure that it goes, but the last thing you want to do is, introduce another, it might kind of botch things if you put something in another fund. We spent the last 5 years trying to consolidate, the budget into manageable funds.
So then where do we find the resources to?
Well, that's where the fees are, ideally the fees should cover that cost.
The fees cover our cost of delivering the inspections and the permitting and the re-inspections. You're speaking to the broader mission, like the rental rehab program. Could fees help fund that particular program? Keep the sort of the housing funds
or at least
focused on housing.
Yeah, or at least because before you came here, and I forget the last gentleman's name because he was here for literally 2 minutes. The former director, we were working together, and
I was here for 2 minutes.
Yeah, LaPlante, yeah. We were working together on like a rental rehabilitation legislation, and so essentially the fees that we collected from like the applications and all that stuff were to go to help with relocation. Now we got into a pickle with the district court, and we threw out the legislation. But at some point I'd like to figure out, how we can just assist with this, because the thing is, obviously planning and zoning is not the bad guy. But when people come home and they see the bright orange placard on their door that says your unit is inhabitable, they are calling us and they're saying, well, where can I go? Everybody's not like HACA where they're like giving them, options of housing and all this stuff ahead of time. And so it always puts us in a sticky situation. We don't have money, obviously, to help them I don't think any departments have discretionary funding, and so it's always tough. Any other questions on this? Because, you know, it's 9 and everybody has to be to work tomorrow, so.
But how is that program working? Yeah, you're right. I was just looking up, it was like January 19th that you turned it over into the Citizens platform. Is it working efficiently? And does HACA use it? The residents of HACA use it?
You're talking about our software?
Yeah.
I think there's a learning curve with anything that's new. And I think we're growing. We're struggling to get everybody on board. We're definitely dealing with incoming
Citizens service.
inquiries through that system. So
Yeah.
I know it's working.
Yeah.
I just hope it's working as well as everybody had hoped.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there's room to expand it as we go forward and make it more fine-tuned.
Advertisement, yeah. I didn't realize that. I've used it for permits, but I didn't realize that you can also do the complaints, etc.
And you have every question possible on the website. You know, how do I? What can I? How can I?
I would say that it's a complicated software applied to a very complicated set of processes and procedures. And after a year, we're still working out bugs, candidly. We didn't design the system. We have had to actually change our procedures in part to accommodate the capabilities of the system, and it's generally not what you want to do. But we're working hard. In fact, even today, we went through a test case. I was actually the applicant today on the computer, and we found some issues that are systemic that we can't change, that the provider has to change. But these are the same things that the average citizen experiences, the frustration that I was experiencing in front of staff. And so it led to a lot of shared understanding. Now we know what people are complaining about when they call. Our administrative staff spends a lot of time on the phone, and then there are people that don't have the capability or the know-how or the patience to go through the computer to upload applications when they've been doing rental renewals in paper forever. So there's a lot of community engagement going on to really build our capability here.
The last thing Melissa wants to say to a tenant is, get on your computer.
Right.
Fill us up.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that we were having the work session on the 15th, and that's why I halted on most of what I wanted to, because I guess that's going to be a deeper dive. Question, will you be there, Ms. Maddox Evans, on the 15th?
What times?
I think it's 3. Okay, yeah, it's our work sessions. Because I wanted to kind of dive into it, but I will hold off into obviously the relationship that the department and HACA have, and where that is at this moment. I don't know if I'm looking at the city attorney, because I don't know if there are any legal things that I'm barred from mentioning right now, but just in regards to the relationship of HACA, the city, the inspection process, I'm not sure if we are still in consent territory or not, or are we kind of just doing our own thing? I don't know.
There are still, I'm sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Joel Braithwaite from the Office of Law. The consent decree persists for another 6 years. We just filed the 4th annual consent decree report to the court.
Okay, can we get that by any chance, this committee?
Yes, we'll be happy to forward to you immediately.
Awesome, yeah, that'd be great. Just so that we can kind of, be caught up. And then I just want to make sure that the concerns that you had, Melissa, are addressed. I know you came before this committee and you came before the full council and expressed concern with some of the inspection process and, just things that could have made it easier on you. And to the Alderwoman's point earlier, where she, stated very eloquently, is if the tenant can't pay rent, you can't get money, you can't fix things. It's going in a circle. And so that's why obviously the units are, inhabitable. But to the public that is listening, because then people are like, oh, well, what happens to us? I think that our role as a body is to, try to find resources, try to find funding, to make sure that people are adequately housed while we figure out these financial issues. So I really do look forward to that meeting on the 15th. If you all wanted to make any closing statements, and then Melissa, I'll let you do the CNI. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Just by way of closing statement, the 15th work session is about planning and zoning generally, but this is one part of it, of course. But we're going to be talking about zoning, development, development review, comprehensive planning, our work program moving forward. It's going to be a comprehensive 2-hour discussion. An element of that discussion will be like what we're talking about tonight.
So, well, then, are we able to just talk about maybe what you all have changed so that HACA is able to kind of meet their goals? Is that because I was under the impression that there were some meetings where you all, spent time together and were coming up with a better plan on how to get these units back online, et cetera. And I don't want to spoil anything or put anything out to the public too soon, but if there is a plan, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I mentioned 2 of the things already this evening, and some of the other things are about how we respond to resident calls, how we notify HACA and the property managers generally in the city in advance, particularly for non-emergency. So we can do it within 3 days, but in emergency, we have a policy of being there within a day. That doesn't mean we have time within that day to call the HACA office or call Park Place to let them know that there's an issue that requires an emergency inspection. So those are 2 other things. And there is complete openness on our department to continue working with HACA and any property manager to work out the bugs so we can develop the best optimum system across the board. So as I said, I think that Melissa and I will continue to be working together over a period of time to continue refining procedures that could help in this regard.
Director Jakubiec, when you have these discussions with Ms. Maddox on how to improve things, what is your objective when you have these discussions? What is the objective? To keep the residents in the unit? And I mean, you have to have an objective.
Sure.
Before, or Melissa, what's your objective here? Is to
John had stated what the objective of the inspections and permits is to ensure high quality housing.
You're right.
For all citizens.
Yeah.
And I think that aligns with HACA's objective.
Yeah.
About.
Or does it?
Housing generally. I would let Melissa address that.
It does. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
We never can lose sight of that.
Yes, well, our objective, of course, is to provide safe,
Oh, your mic's
decent-
not on.
Our objective is, of course, to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing for all of our residents. And in addition to that, being compliant with local health and safety codes. And also to be able to better inform of what our limitations are as a federally subsidized housing provider, and to continue to provide city officials with that education.
How often do you meet, or just how often do you meet, or is that something you're going to start?
Well, she meets with Melissa.
I know we've met twice.
Okay.
You meet with Teresa every Wednesday, right?
I meet with Teresa and Denise Ruffin
And Denise.
on a weekly on a weekly basis.
Got it.
But I will
good.
say,
Sounds great.
I'm sorry, are you finished? Yeah. I will say that I am very pleased with Mr. Jakubiec's really his attempts to be able to bridge what I think has been a historical communication gap between the city and HACA, and his sincere efforts to try to improve not only the efficiencies of the city's inspections process, but help improve the conditions in which our residents live in, and also to be able to better assist our staff through, as I said, improved communication. So between him and Mr. Manassa, the efforts that they've been making recently, I think have vastly improved the overall administration of the inspections process. So I'm very grateful for that, because I think listening is just half of the battle. And I'm glad that maybe some of the improvements can help other property owners throughout Annapolis, because I don't think some of the challenges we were facing were unique to us alone. I would like to offer maybe one insight that was mentioned earlier or inquired about with regards to the rental assistance program and the connection between the increased need. Just to give this body an understanding, we're about $700,000 with regards to rental collection deficits. So we run a running deficit with regards to our operations. So any discussions of increase in fines or anything of that nature really it's not feasible for us. But one of the things that I think will vastly help through this, because I think there has been a misunderstanding, I will say, or some incorrect or wrong information that has been in the general public with regards to a resident's obligation to pay rent during any portion of the licensing process. For some reason, and I really have not been able to get to the origin of this reason, but there are many residents that believe that if a unit loses its license, that they are no longer obligated to pay rent.
Is that something that, and I'm just wondering if when we place the placards on the doors, are the placards mandated by the state to have certain language? Or could we add, because I'm assuming these are printed in bulk, you're still, required to pay rent under whatever, rule it is. But is that something that can be done? Or, just as a simple fix maybe, or?
We've discussed that internally, candidly, and but we haven't decided how far we as a city want to go in making declarations about the relationship between the owner and the tenant. Mm-hmm. And we see that we're just not comfortable yet with that. But we're open to consider continuing discussions on that topic and other commentary that would be useful to both parties.
Yeah.
But really what we want to do is explain what we're doing there and what our obligations are and what we're obligated by code to do, and really stay within our lane generally. But we recognize the benefit of that.
Yeah, and I know we ask a lot and try to bend the rules and be as lenient as we possibly can and all that stuff. And so I don't want to put too much pressure on the department and I seen the city attorney shaking his head when you were saying that there is some sort of relationship between us jumping in the middle of tenant and landlord. And so
to that, I will say that the statutory requirements with regards to landlord-tenant law are very clear on what the obligations are of the landlord and of the tenant. Mm-hmm. And there is an escrow process that a tenant can avail themselves of through the courts if they feel that a landlord is not taking care of the property properly. And so there are definite recourses that are in the state code with regards to that. So any consideration of that would be greatly appreciated because perception is truth. And that is the area in which we are dealing with now. It is perceived that if there is some sort of notice on a unit door, that a resident does not have to pay rent anymore. The problem with that perception is that they become thousands and thousands of dollars behind in rent, to the point that when we do receive a license, it's almost impossible for them to catch up. And then they end up in your system asking for rental assistance over and over again. So the city will have to deal with it through that means. So it's just something to consider and think about, because it's definitely impacting our operations, that perception. So that's what I would like to offer with regards to that. And
think the
I'll also give you an
120
update on CNI.
Yeah, so let's do the CNI because
Oh, right.
It's day 40.
it's 8:40 and everybody's getting antsy. But I wish, I mean, this is great, and I really wish that we could continue this. I think it's
there.
yeah, no, I think it's important, and we just got a lot of good feedback, and I really want the public to know that we're trying our best to fix this, and it may look like we're just talking, but that is what you have to do often to find a solution, and just make sure that we're all on the same page. And so, any closing comments, Mr. Manasseh?
I did want to just take 10 seconds to acknowledge that earlier I mentioned there were some communities that were struggling this year and finding more violations. And the HACA managed properties are going against that trend. And year over year, we saw a vast improvement in our inspection results on the HACA properties. And in some cases, the number of things that we found in violation were down by half.
That's really
That was in Eastport Terrace and also Morris Blum. We've got Robinwood. We found like 200 fewer violations this year than last year. And the number of licenses that we've issued are increasing. So I really want to thank Ms. Maddox Evans for the work her staff are doing to try to get those things completed in a timely manner. It's definitely an improvement year over year.
I wish we could, I mean, that needs to be sent to Mitchell, and that she needs to be putting that in Facebook and in Twitter and letting people know, because again, what you say, perception is truth. The perception is that everything is going, and so that's fantastic news. That made my night. And we can end on that high note. We can end on that high note. Obviously, I'll see you all again on the 15th. I think we'll definitely, keep email communications open, because there were just two things that I wanted to follow up on from tonight. Any other thing? Everybody good? Awesome. Thank you both very, very much. And I hope that the deputy or the city manager lets you come in at 10 tomorrow, because we kept you here so late. So, Melissa, thank you. And I'm glad that you were reporting this out to us, because we had a kind of retreat, and one of my colleagues was just like, we have no idea what's going on with CNI, and they don't really want us to know. And I'm like, that is the furthest thing from the truth, I'm sure. And so if you kind of just would like to catch us up on what that is, and I know there are some outstanding balances that the city could probably help with, so.
Sure. Well, we submitted our final transformation plan to HUD in November of 2023, right before Thanksgiving, and we're still waiting to get feedback from HUD on the plan. And so with that plan, of course, as you are aware, it was a comprehensive plan for the renovation of Eastport Terrace and the Harbor House. What we are also working on, and actually what the city is working on, because their contribution, part of their contribution in assisting with this grant project is to facilitate and lead the early action activity, which is called the Gateway Project, which is one of the very first projects of the grant, in which would be the revitalization of the crosswalk at Madison and President Street. So that is a city-led project with our support. The city has already procured a firm to assist with that. They are in the process of engaging the public. They have a series of community meetings this month, actually, with our residents at Eastport Terrace Harbor House, other local residents. There'll be online surveys, all geared towards gathering input from the public on the design of the crosswalk refurbishing and any ideas. It's a crosswalk refurbishing, bus stop. So essentially, the entrance into the community will be the signal of something greater to come. So that's the purpose of doing an introductory project, which is funded in part through the CNI funds. That $100,000 goes towards that, in which the city is contributing to that through its different resources. And the city then pays the firm who is running that project, and they receive reimbursement from HACA. And HACA requests that money from HUD to draw down those funds. So that's where we are. So there are things happening. It's cold and wintry and now. So there has been a pause in some of our outdoor activity, but come towards the end of March, April, definitely, and well into May, you're going to see activity at the crosswalk there.
Same firm. Is it Ray and Maggie still?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes. So that's what's going on with the implementation grant, which actually closes out the planning grant, rather, that closes out the planning grant activities. The next step will be to go into implementation preparation in the efforts to plan to apply for an implementation grant, which the earliest, if we are ready, would be next year. To apply for an implementation grant, and that would be going for the $50 million from HUD. I was
going to ask you how much.
So this year should be considered the year in which we firm our commitments to be able to get the things in place to be eligible to apply for that grant, which would include solid commitments from the city towards the CNI process.
And when you say solid commitments from the city, because
I will clarify. We need legal commitments, city resolutions.
Oh, okay.
A commitment that
put that on our to-do list.
Outlasts any particular term. Mm-hmm. That is a commitment of the city itself towards this project, because this is, in essence, what we're talking about is at least an 8-year, maybe 8 to 10-year project between the first phases and the last phase. Yes, from this point.
Yeah. Wow.
And so the commitment of the city cannot be particular to any one particular. So, for example, our current mayor is very supportive of CNI and is determined to be very committed to this process, which is great and awesome, and is why we are here where we are today. So we need for those commitments to be memorialized, because when we apply to HUD for the funds, they have to see that there is matching support and commitment. And they cannot assess that through anything that's less than a formal agreement. City council resolutions, our HACA board resolutions. It's essentially the same exact thing we did to even apply for the planning grant. We had a formal agreement between the city and HACA, and we agreed to mutually support planning grant activities. There was a city council resolution to do so. there was a hack a board resolution to do so. That's what I'm talking about. The same exact thing has to happen before we apply for implementation. The level of commitment that we're looking for has to do with land granting designation for this project and resources, financial resources, funds that are dedicated toward this project.
Funding if we don't know how much funding we would actually need to designate? Like,
I'm sorry?
Or how do we designate funding if we just don't have an actual figure?
There is a figure with regards to the plan. It's a minimum of a $300 million project.
No, I'm saying from the city. Are you expecting $50 million from the city? I think that's what it was.
I'm expecting as much money as the city is willing to give. So if you think about it this way, the money that HUD awards is reflected of the local investment. So it's not that it's going to take $50 million to do this grant. HUD is willing to grant that amount if it sees the local investment. It is matching local funds towards this project. So the investment of the locality
that's right.
has to reflect their seriousness and commitment towards this deal. So $50 million for the city would be phenomenal.
Well, yeah, because my point is just that if we don't give you high figure dollars, the project is just not going to happen.
Well, there are several phases to this project, and there is no limit to the number of CNI grants that a housing authority can apply for any particular large-scale project. There are several CNI projects that have many CNI grants attached to it. But in order to even start, there has to be a local commitment. For the grant application to be considered. And so that is one of the things that I wanted to clarify because I think people can get stuck on the $50 million number and not realize it's actually a matching grant.
Quickly, I want to ask a question to the city attorney. What is legally binding? Because a resolution is not legally binding according to what just happened with, what was the Cove project where we just were in court over a resolution that they had filed in 1985 to give water access? What was that? Blue Heron. So if a resolution is not binding, what would we actually do prior to 2025 December to make it that regardless of electeds, a project like this with the best interests of our communities would move forward?
Fascinating question. It's not something I'm quick to answer right now. Joe Albright with Office of Law. I do believe that that question actually is probably more political than it is legal, because an ordinance theoretically lasts forever, and that's different from the resolution, which theoretically expires after a year or so.
Okay.
Well, I think the question is what is HUD, what is good for HUD? And you said the first process it worked with a resolution, right? Yeah.
So we will need something to reflect a commitment, a firm commitment from the city with regards to its contribution toward this effort. I currently don't have anything in writing.
Yeah.
And so I can't proceed. And to give context, a CNI application must be applied for to HUD in partnership with a city or local jurisdiction. I can't apply for an implementation grant alone. I would have to apply in partnership with the city, us all reflecting our mutual commitments towards the effort. So I wanted to just give some context as to why we would need. So for example, Mayor Buckley has stated in public that he would like to commit $1 million towards this effort from the city funds. So that would need to be memorialized somehow, and he stated he would pursue matching funds from the state.
I'm sorry, $1 million
towards CNI implementation. So that's a good start.
Yeah, you just
So-
said they're matching up to 50.
Correct. But it's a start. And so, which is great. I just wanted to communicate that we are at a point where we have the plan. We know what we intend to do. We have to secure commitments in order to pursue application for this effort.
2 questions before we just start to wrap, and we need to bring you back because we were not fair in giving you the amount of time that you should have for this. Is the CNI grant the best housing development or housing rehabilitation option that HUD has?
I would not characterize the CNI project in that way as the best, because any particular grant is particular to that jurisdiction for the local needs of that particular jurisdiction. There are many different types of grants for many different types of issues. But I will say that for neighborhood revitalization, the CNI grant would be the best, if not one of the best mechanisms to be able to do that, because it allows housing authorities with a great deal of flexibility with regards to redevelopment options. And so I would say yes. You know, for our purposes and what we need accomplished, it would be a CNI grant or a CNI type of project. And so, because CNI is about the approach, it's not necessarily about just this particular pot of money that HUD has. It's about comprehensive, collaborative, community revitalization with all interested stakeholders involved in the process. So that's why I think it's the best approach.
Do you know if it's in our comprehensive plan? I should.
It is.
I believe that
yes,
it
and
is.
it's listed, I think, at least 4 or 5 times.
And it's also, I believe, in part of our consent decree, you know, to enter into these types of partnerships.
Right.
So it would be very beneficial for the city to pursue a grant program like CNI in fulfilling of its own commitments for the consent decree, for example. So.
Any other questions on this? We will bring you back if it fits your schedule.
Earlier in the day.
Yeah, I was ready to say in March and let you start the agenda. I would like to see the state and city commitments to the city dock project, and I would like us to match the exact same thing. So if I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I feel like just even in planning and paying some salaries, we have put more than $1 million into that project. And so why not do the same for you? And that's for the state as well, for our state delegation, who is actively in session right now. And I hope they're pulling funding. What has the state said?
I have talked to state officials, and they are committed to supporting our efforts. They are also very interested in what the city's commitment is.
You know, and that's what puzzles me, because when you're a state rep, just because you're a state representative does not mean that the city is not your constituency. We voted for you. And so I would hope that there would be some sort of partnership and, you know, open communication. I hate that. It's always like, well, what is the city doing? Well, what is the $1 billion state doing to help us? Like, that is the issue. I hope that, we could put together a resolution to assist you. My difference with you is Spot Road. We can get into that at another time. I just don't feel comfortable getting or granting, land to, a program that, that this takes a long time to come to fruition. And I've seen programs, for instance, in, like I've mentioned this previously, in Silver Spring, where they've put $4 million, the municipality has put $4 million up in a public-private partnership and TIF, financing plan with a bank and a developer. And, they've built like a 176 unit building and they're selling them, not renting them, selling them at market or at below market rate. So I would like to see those type of things happen on the Spa Road facility, but I understand the need for that land, obviously expanding the C&I portfolio. So I'm supportive of it. I will work on the resolution. I will make that my goal and this body's goal. So I will probably have to get with you to make sure we have the appropriate language. So, okay.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
Any other questions? When is our next meeting? March 18th. So right after St. Patrick's Day. If you're around, we'll send you an invitation.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so
for your
much.
support.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad of your growing relationship with the new director.
We're wrapping.
Yeah, we're wrapping. We're wrapped.
Good meeting. This is 3 months worth of agenda stuff, and so sometimes you
Good
have
thing we
to.
didn't have a lot of it.
Sometimes you got to work till 8:57. That's why we make the big bucks. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
I think Teresa.
I have not yet.
I don't want to hear nobody's.